Well, hello and welcome to Promises Kept number 59 of our 150 Promises of God series. Happy that you're returning, and today we just have a short little verse here, and it's in the book of Isaiah, and hopefully it's just going to just solidify hopefully what you already know, what you've already been taught through these lessons. But it's in the Old Testament, so it's always good to look at these verses and just think about their prophetic nature, because Isaiah was a prophet, and then just take them in as all the different ways God was trying to tell everybody, predict to everybody what would happen finally when salvation came to the earth. So let's go to Isaiah. It's chapter 32, and the verse is number 17. And I hope you'll pretty quickly into it, you'll get the spiritual nature of it. And obviously it's being spoken in a time where Isaiah is also speaking to Israel, so there's a literal part to it too, which we don't ever want to neglect. This is written at a time where Israel is really been not following the Lord, and things are going to have already happened to the northern part of Israel, and they're going to happen to Judah. And so Isaiah is trying to warn about all that. Israel is, is his target audience. But it also, this verse speaks to us. So let's read it. Isaiah 32:17. The effect of righteousness will be peace, and the result of righteousness, quietness and trust forever. So when you see forever, we've talked about this, you know that we're talking about future stuff, forever. A forever promise is a spiritual promise. It's not a right now promise, because everything on this earth is temporary, and even any kind of things that Isaiah was saying to the people, the nation of Israel, about them having to turn back to the Lord and get back in right standing with Him by following His laws. That's what righteousness would mean in the Old Testament time. When you say forever, it's an eternal thing, it's a spiritual thing. So let's look at it with those eyes and with more of a New Testament feeling. And the effect of righteousness will be peace. Now, we have talked about the fact that righteousness means right standing with God. Before Jesus came to make things, to heal things on this earth, we were not in right standing with God. There was nothing but enmity between God and humanity, and that is because of what happened in the Garden of Eden. So ever since the Garden of Eden, God was planning things, orchestrating things. I mean, He did this before the beginning of time. He knew everything that was going to happen. But everything that happened after the Garden of Eden, every promise to Abraham to make a great nation, and Jesus was going to come out of that line, and all of the different laws that were given to the Jewish people, everything that happened, even the Jewish people getting delivered out of Egypt, and then them getting the laws and being in the promised land and kicked out of the promised land, all of this is all just leading up to the salvation that was going to come through Jesus. It's all pointing to Jesus and the right standing that Jesus would bring back to humanity, an opportunity to get back into fellowship with God, the fellowship that was broken in the garden. And of course, He does that by taking the sin of the world on His shoulders and going to the cross. Meaning, every sin that anybody in the world has committed, past, present, future, Jesus took with Him to the cross, and He bore the wrath of God, the wrath that should have been placed on all of us. Everyone who's ever told a lie, ever had a bad thought, all of that deserves consequence, penalty. It's against God, the God that created us. Here we are, laughing at Him, mocking Him by not following Him, not doing what He says, by doing things like lying and stealing and having bad thoughts and angry thoughts and lusting and all the things that we do. Even the little things, the big things, yeah, sure, murder, adultery, absolutely. All of that, it's all terrible, but all of it, even the little things, it's against God. And because our hearts have been against God before Jesus, we're accumulating sin, and we're accumulating a penalty. God is just. He's got to exact penalty. Something is done to Him. He's got to vindicate it. He's got to do something to punish it, or he wouldn't be 100% just. And nobody wants an unjust God. No, nobody wants an unjust judge. Really, if you walk into a courtroom, if somebody who's got a pile of speeding tickets walks into a courtroom, people want that person to be prosecuted, and they want justice served, because the next person that person speeds and hits, and it could be somebody dies because of this person. So people's heart goes towards justice, and that's because we all have that justice chip in us that God has put in us. We all are made in the image of God, and that's one of the things. So we all want justice, and God must exact justice. And the point of it is that the wrath of God was poured out on Jesus for all the sins that all of us committed. And it was a brutal, brutal death, and only the blood of God himself spilled could wipe out the sin of all of humanity. The whole Old Testament, all the Levitical laws shows us that without the spilling of blood, there's no remittance of sin. We can go right back to the garden, if you like, and see the beginning of that. Sometimes it escapes people to just really take a look. And before what Adam and Eve did, the sin-wise in the garden, there was no death. Nobody died. There was no killing. There was no animals that died. There was just an eternal spirit, an eternal physical nature. And when they sinned, what did God do to help them? I mean, they were ashamed of their sin. They were trying to cover with leaves. But what God did was he killed an animal and used those skins to cover Adam and Eve. So shedding of blood goes right on back to what happened in the garden. There must be a shedding of blood to cover sin. And that is what happened with Jesus. The blood of God Almighty, the Son of God, however you want to think of him, he's God, was shed on that cross to cover the sin of the world. And the offer to have that extended is out there to anybody. Anybody can take the offer. It was done for everybody, but you have to accept the offer. And if you accept the offer of having your sin wiped away by what Jesus did, now you're clean of your sin and you're back in right standing with God. It's like what happened in the Garden of Eden gets wiped away. It's like it never happened, and God sees you as clean and perfect and sees you like Jesus, who was perfect, right? He never sinned, so he got the wrath we deserved, and we get the perfect record that he deserved and deserves. Great exchange happened on the cross, and with that, it all goes back to righteousness. We get a right standing with God, and so hopefully now you can see, and the effect of righteousness will be peace. Peace. You will be in peace again with God. You're no longer an enemy of God when you accept that gift on the cross and obtain back your right standing, your righteousness with God. You are now at peace with God. The wrath of God is no longer coming your way, but instead you will be going to heaven to be with God forever, because now you have no sin, and we've talked about this before. No evil, no sin can be in heaven. So since you're wiped clean by what Jesus did, you will be at peace with God, and you'll also be at peace because you know in your mind on earth, I know I'm going to heaven. I don't have any question about it because I've accepted what Jesus did. I've asked for forgiveness of my sin. I believe that he died for my sin. I've repented. I've turned towards him. I've given my life to him. I'm following him. I'm not just saying with my lips, sure, I'm a Christian. No, I'm acting out my faith because he loved me, and so I love him. So now I bear fruit for the kingdom of God, and that's just a way that he knows, the world knows, that I'm truly following him. And so this is the promise here, that your righteousness will give you peace with God, and the peace of knowing that you're going to be in heaven eternally. It takes away, most people fear death if they're being honest, but a Christ follower, sure, we all fear how it's going to happen, but I don't fear the after. I know I'm going to be in heaven, and that's something to really consider, because I've been on mission trips to Central America, and most of the people down there are Catholic, and they have heard their whole lives, Jesus died for my sin, Jesus died for my sin. But when you ask them, do you know if you're going to heaven? They say, I don't know, if God lets me, maybe, if I'm good. And, they've missed the whole point of it, even though they know the words, Jesus died for my sin. They're not getting that gospel message of the great exchange, that because he did that, they will be going to heaven. You don't have to guess or think about it. There's no more, what kind of good work do I have to do to prove myself to God? There's nothing any of us can do. The only thing that any of us can do is believe what Jesus did to take away our sin. There's nothing you can do. No amount of good work will ever take away your sin. There's no blood spilled. So, and I'm not saying hurt yourself, because your blood being spilled is not going to take away your sin. So anyway, it's really important, and can you, right now, where you're sitting, say to yourself, I absolutely 110% know that I'm going to heaven, and it's not because I'm a good person. It has nothing to do with me being good. It has everything to do with Jesus being great, the only one that was able to take my sin away from me, and he did it out of pure love. So hopefully, maybe this is the first time you've heard that, hopefully that gives you some freedom. In America, most people don't even think about it. They think, oh yeah, or they don't even consider it. Things are so easy here that nobody even thinks about it. This is truly the mission field. When you go down to Central America or other places, they love God because they're clinging on to him for water and food and shelter. They don't have it easy. So they are trusting in him to just get them through the day. They might mess up a little bit in their thoughts about heaven, but their love of God and their need for God is evident. Here, nobody needs God, nobody cares about God, nobody thinks about God, because it's easy. And so, if you were to ask, hey, do you think you're a good person, you're going to heaven? Oh yeah, I think so. Or they don't even care, they don't even think about it. So hopefully this makes you think about it and know that even if you think you're a good person, without believing in Jesus, you're not going to heaven, which means the wrath of God is left on you, and you will be going to hell. Eternal wrath of God in hell. In your physical body, you will be feeling, there's no way to describe it. I can't even imagine. Just the only way that I can think about it to make it sound as bad as what I think it will be for those who go is, imagine if somebody knew every single thing you did wrong, every thought that you had that was wrong, and knew you so well that they could fit your penalty exactly to you, and that penalty would be enduring forever. How specific that would be. They knew your deepest fears, they knew your deepest crushing losses, they knew everything about you, and they were able to make you suffer with what you feared the most eternally. If that doesn't chill you, I don't know what's going to make you not want to go to hell. But an all-knowing God knows how to make you suffer eternally for not choosing to repair the relationship that you chose to break. You have the opportunity. You can choose him any day. So anyway, let's go on to the second part. That was kind of a downer, but second part. And the result of righteousness, quietness, and trust forever. And we really did talk about that just before. The result of being in right standing with God, of being righteous now, is this quietness. There's just a quiet peace amongst somebody who's truly a Christ follower. It doesn't matter what is happening in the world, as bad as it gets. Not that we don't think about it and worry about it at times, but there's just this quiet undertone, which is like, God's got it. God's going to take care of it. God's going to take care of me. If he died on the cross, a brutal death for my sin, what's going to stop him from caring for me now? He loved me quite literally to his own demise. So he's not giving up on me. So I have this quietness, this quiet peace, and it's the trust forever. Righteousness gives you trust forever. My hands, my life is in Jesus' hands. I'm trusting him with my forever. I trust what he says that he will. At the day of my death, my soul is going to meet Jesus face to face. And eventually my body will rise from the dead and I will be in a glorified body with Jesus forever in heaven. That's what I trust. And with that, there's just a peacefulness, a quietness, and it just passes all understanding, which is what the Bible says, and it's true. So here we have in the Old Testament something that predicts what a New Testament believer would say has already happened to them. The effect of righteousness, of getting their right standing back with God, is peace. And the result of righteousness, quietness, and trust forever. I just would say, if you're not a Christ follower, ask other Christ followers. Don't take my word for it. Ask them if they have this quiet, peaceful trust in the Lord with their forever. Maybe you already know they do, but just ask some people, and maybe that will help you make the decision, because we need it. Everybody needs it. The world is going absolutely haywire. There's no other way to say it, and it's all over, not just here. So, everybody needs to trust that this isn't it, and that's where I was saying, when you go down to Central America and you can share with them, if this isn't it, you're suffering terribly here. It's a terrible situation you're in, poverty and all of that down there. But this isn't it. And you can know that you know that you know that when you die, you will be in heaven. And the freedom that comes across their face, the peace that comes across their face, not everybody. I mean, some people, they hear it and they don't accept it. They still think they have to do good works. Unfortunately, that's part of the Catholic tradition, that your good work means something. And it's just not the truth. The Bible, not just one place, but many, many, many places say, by grace alone, through faith alone in Jesus Christ, you will be saved. And, that's a simple way to say what I've just said. There's nothing you can do to save yourself. Only Jesus can do it. So hopefully you hear the good news that you can have this quiet, peaceful trust and assurance that no matter what happens on this earth, you will be in heaven forever. So anyway, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.